that it really does. It does bother me to the extent that when I hear the N-word, I wonder why the person is using it. That's always my question. And actually have a bit of a story to tell. Coming from a Safeway store, there were two of the young baggage clerks that were taking a break. And one was black and one was white, and the two guys were sitting on the curb talking to each other, and the young black clerk called the white clerk the N-word. And I just could not believe that he had done that. So they asked me, they said, "Ma'am, can we help you with your groceries?" And usually I would say no, but at that point I said yes, and I pointed to the young black man. I said, "Would you come and help me?" And he said yes. And I said to him, "Why did you use that term? Is that your friend?" He said, "Yes, my friend, and we joke around all the time." I said, "But that's not the kind of word you want to use when you joke, because you make the mistake and he knows it's okay for him to use it, and you're not joking one time. That can lead to fisticuffs. That can lead to you're not being friends anymore." So I'm always dismayed when I hear somebody use it. I'm a bit taken aback.
Raising two young black men, as I say myself, I pride myself on making sure that I lead by example. And again, it's going back to understanding that things that were meant to be harmful or hateful sometimes really should totally be taken away. And I try to make sure that I explain the differences between how they're being used, but also make sure that they understand that they should not be used at all.
I was raised to think of the N-word as a negative, to not call my brothers and sisters the N-word, to not call myself the N-word, because that is a word that was imposed upon my people as something negative, as something to oppress us. So when someone calls me the N-word, it doesn't feel good. Like peers, my African American peers at Howard, they'll say, "What's up?" My N-word, and it doesn't resonate well with me, but it's become so standard that sometimes I don't notice. And sometimes I'll sing along to a song and say it. And I don't think that that's a positive thing.
The N-word doesn't really have an effect on me, only for the fact that I feel like it describes someone who's not me, from what I'm told that it means in the definition of it, That's not me, I don't think that's just because someone is black that, back in the day we were called Negroes, but the word nigger was actually supposed to be a negative thing, and it was supposed to make, it had a certain connotation about it. I don't think that people today could ever fathom the amount of impact it had on those people at that time. The way we use it today, or the way that someone says it to you today, is just like they're just trying to get under your skin for the most part. The way that it was used back then, it was hurtful, and it was designed to be hurtful. And if we could go back and talk to those people that it was used against in the 60s or in slavery times, they would tell you that the way that it was used and the effect that it had on them then is far bigger than what it has today.
It's a word, and I don't let words affect me or rule my life, and that's all I just consider it as. I don't consider the word nigger as something that you would down me, like saying I hate you. I don't see it as that, because it controlled too many people's lives, and I've seen too many people in my research of history die from that word nigger. That word nigger's got people lynched. That word nigger's got people's houses shot up. I refuse to let it control me, so I don't even think about it.
I don't think it has any effect on me personally, unfortunately, and I say that sadly, unfortunately, because I hear it all the time. It's sort of like if, and but. It's a word sadly used in our everyday language. So being in the society that I'm in, it doesn't really affect me. However, once we are in a different environment, be it more white people around or Hispanics or Asian or other nationalities, I do think it should be monitored and used more cautiously.
Unfortunately, it doesn't have any, the N-word doesn't affect me personally. And the reason for that is because it's like, to me, name calling, and that's not what I am. And one of the things that my mother taught me when we were growing up is that you don't react to someone calling you something that you know you're not.
I don't like to hear it, but saying the N-word as opposed to actually saying the actual word, the connotation is still there.
When growing up, or now that I'm an adult, and I still hear people using the N-word as a term of endearment, or even trying to reference me or place me in that category, I can say that it really does not have any impact on me. I'm an educated black male, a male that has grown up and heard certain comments of stupid, ignorant. I subscribe to the same theory. I know that I'm not stupid, I know that I'm not dumb, and I know that I'm not a nigger. So it goes back to the concept, it really doesn't really matter what you're called, but it does really matter how you respond to it. So I really don't allow those things to define me.
Personally, in the context that I want to put more distance between its use and whatever context it is and myself. I'm retired as a senior administrative law judge for the District of Columbia, but I would ride the bus to work every day, and I was sorely disappointed by the use of that word 8 o'clock in the morning on the bus by ninth graders. And I remember one time one of the women on the bus spoke out and said, "Don't use that word, don't use that word." And they cursed her and called her words that I won't repeat. I spoke up and I said, no, we do not disrespect anybody, and especially our African American women, could be your mother, your grandmother. Then they used the foulest words in the English language against me, used the N-word about 7 or 8 times, and told me that they were going to kill me. And the bus driver, who should have called the police, did nothing. He held onto the steering wheel, looked straight ahead. So that was very upsetting, yes. And I fear that we're not making much progress in getting our young people to understand that the real meaning of that and why it should never be used.
The N-word has a personal effect on me just because I don't like when people say it. You can basically say hey to someone in a different way than just using the N-word. And I take it offensively if someone says it to me.
The N-word does not really have a major effect on me now because I know who I am. So, you know, you're not going to hurt my feelings. It's like with the Paula Deen thing. It's like she's not the first one to do that.
To me, it's not okay, period. And I mean, for a white person to use it is absolutely demeaning. They can't refer to somebody, they shouldn't, as mine, use the N-word. So if they can't use it, we shouldn't use it either. Even if we want to claim it's a different context or a different meaning, a term of endearment. That word is not endearing, not to me. And this is the word that the enslavers used. They didn't give us the dignity of calling us African Americans because we weren't Americans. They didn't give us the dignity of calling us colored because that was the term that came afterwards. They didn't even want to call us Negroes. They just wanted to call it a bunch of.
I think the N-word has been so linked with black people that it's like we own it, but we really don't. I think there are definitions and things out there that would relate to anybody having been actually using that word, but I don't think it belongs exclusively to us, but it has been linked historically to us.
I don't believe that it belongs to one race because one race used it towards another. So instantly you have a marriage between the meaning. So I don't think that it's about ownership. I feel it's part of our history. And just like part of our history, some things you don't have to repeat.
This is such a hard question. Should the N-word be used for only one race to describe themselves? Because the way America's set up, there isn't just one race. And the words we use are seen by everyone. And they're not only going to be used by us because there's so many different cultures in every piece of the United States, and I would love to say that only black people should be allowed to use the N-word, but I think that if as a people we're going to be so sensitive to other cultures and other races using our term, then I don't think we should use it for ourselves.
The N-word is never okay to use, and it does not belong to any race. It's one word that needs to be done away with. No other group of people, race of people, use their negative words against themselves but black people. You don't hear the Jewish people calling each other kikes. You don't hear the Mexican calling each other wetbacks. We don't own those words. We need to do away with that word. I am not a nigger. I don't see myself as a nigger. I don't allow black people to call me niggers. And definitely I wouldn't want a white person to call me a nigger, but it's just a behavior that's associated with it that I just don't like.
I don't think that anybody who is not of color could ever understand the pain that that word had behind it, or the hurt that was caused by the people that it was originated from. But the same could be said for anybody in this generation, because we don't live in those times anymore. You know, I didn't grow up in a place where I had to sit in the back of the bus, or I had to use a certain water fountain, or I couldn't shop at a certain store just because of the color of my skin. And I definitely don't think anyone living today could ever know what that means.
In society today, it appears that the N-word is universal and it belongs to everyone. And again, what the N-word meant in the 60s is not what the N-word means today, because I was on public transportation, which I take all the time, and there were these Latino two teenagers that got on the bus, and they were calling each other the N-word, but with an A at the end of it. And it seemed odd to hear that coming from their mouth, but no one around us was bothered by that. It was just the norm. It was almost as if they were having regular conversation, but they were using, hey, my N, and that just really sounded interesting.
If anything, we should stop saying it and give people an example of why they shouldn't say it. We have to lead by example instead of just trying to jump on other people's back. Because what is the real difference between someone of a different race saying the N-word when they're not necessarily saying it in a derogatory term, and the difference in opposed to someone who is African American that's saying the N-word? You're both saying it in the same context, but because of the fact that you're black, you feel like you have a rite of passage to say the N-word because of our history. If anything, you should understand why we shouldn't say it because of our history and because of all the negative connotations that comes with it.
I believe in the beginning, we embraced that word that was put on us, and we need to let that thing go and take the power away from it.
The N-word is, to me, is being embraced by the young people, and maybe more so the people in their 30s and early 40s. I think beyond that, they still have fear of the N-word. As for white people, like I previously stated, I know a lot of white people that have black friends, and they'll greet their black friends and say, hey, nigga, and they'll give each other a high five. So, but then when you go around the white people's families, their grandfather or their great-grandfather, they would still see the word nigger as it being a prejudice against one race, where they don't see it as that. They see it as an embracement now. So, but as for any other nationality pertaining to the word N, I don't even think they think about it.
I think that the N-word doesn't belong to one race. I think that, well, the funny thing is I've heard other races use it, and it's sad when you hear a white person call another person the N-word, or I see it a lot in the Latino community. They use the N-word a lot, and it's kind of funny to us because it's like we want to believe it's our word, but in actuality it's not. I don't think it belongs to one person. I think that if you look at the definition of it, it would probably give you a deeper understanding.
Well, I've been told that the word nigger means an ignorant person. So if it's an ignorant person, it can't belong to one race. But for some reason, we seem to think it's our word and it belongs to us. And then when another race calls us that, then we get angry. And you find recently so many people that's not our race are getting in trouble for using the word nigger, and they're wondering why when they see us use it so loosely.
The usage or employing the term nigger is never acceptable. And not just the word nigger, anything that brings a person down. We have to stop using such language. I do not feel that it is okay for African Americans to state that, well, you know, I'm black, so I can call that person a nigger. No, it's not acceptable on any level. It's pretty much, it's a degrading term. It's a less than term. So no, it's never acceptable for any group, not just African Americans, but for any culture or any racial ethnicity to use that phrase.
Personally, I think it's something we should get away from using. 1 minute we'll say that word and talking to a friend. The next minute you get upset because another culture called you bad. We just need to let that word go.
It bothers me because our culture and our race has used it so much that other races have picked up on it. And now when other races use it, they feel like that's the norm and there's nothing wrong with it. So if someone was to call them out and say, why are you saying that? They could turn it back to us and say, well, this person said it, he said it, she said it, so why can't we say it? So I feel like it's used too lightly. Again, it's almost as if the connotation and what it actually represents has taken on a totally different meaning. But for persons who are, I think it's an age. It has to do with age as well. Because if you're a certain age, I'll say 45 plus, it has a different connotation, it has a different meaning. Whereas if you are 20 or younger, it has a different meaning. And it's acceptable for the 20 and under versus 45 plus, even 40 plus. I'll say for 40 plus, it means something totally different.
It can be used in academic conversations, generally in writing or perhaps in a seminar, but it doesn't have any place in common conversation. I understand if somebody is studying the history of slavery or African Americans or discrimination or interactions and difficulties between different racial groups of people, you kind of have to use the word sometimes in order to put it in the context of what you're doing and in order to have the transcript or the minutes or whatever properly reflected. But in using it in common parlance between you and me, for example, or my children or somebody in my family or a friend or somebody I don't even know, I don't think it's appropriate. Maybe I'm showing my age, but I don't think it's appropriate.
In common conversation, the use of the N-word just seems to happen. It's something I'm accustomed to. It doesn't offend me. There's a part of me that wishes it wasn't there, but I have participated in it as well.
I don't agree with it. I don't support the use of the N-word in common conversation, no matter what race you're speaking with. And it's hard for me to say this because I have conversations with my friends, my peers, all the time in which the N-word is just thrown around. And it is in a jovial way. It is in a supportive or a friendly way. But we have to remember that it's not a friendly term and that other people, younger people from our African American culture are watching us and seeing us say these things, and they're going to repeat them. And we don't want them to. We don't want them to grow up not understanding why we do and say what we do and say.
There's no way to justify it or defend it at all.
Unfortunately, I've gotten used to it. I mean, it's something that just unfortunately rolls off of most people's tongue, and I'm a little guilty of that myself. I may have used it. Okay, I do use it amongst my friends. You know, my nigga this, my nigga that. But I caution how I use it and when I use it. I do make the adjustment depending on my environment.
It doesn't really exist in my circle. I know it exists in other people's circle, And that's cool for them, but my friends and I, we just don't talk to each other that way. You know, you're my friend, you're not my nigga.
I don't have a problem with the N-word in any type of conversation because everybody is entitled to their opinion. Everybody uses the N-word now in so many different texts and forms. To me, it's just general conversation. Because if you let that word continuously keep a hold on you, then we're going to constantly have a black and white thing instead of a group and everybody just as one.
About 2 weeks ago, I was attending a basketball tournament, and it was out of state. And it was a high school basketball tournament. And the group that was sitting next to me, they were just talking throughout the whole game, and it was nigger this and nigger that and nigger, nigger, nigger. And I just looked at them. It sounded horrible, but for their vocabulary to be that limited, it's not helping them at all. What are they going to do when they really get out into the business world?
The N-word in common conversation, I feel like it shouldn't be said, period. I think the N-word should just be alleviated out of our vocabulary, and we should just think of fun and nice words to describe each other than something that's so, because a lot of times when I hear people say the N-word in conversation, it's not necessarily like good. It's sometimes you're joking with people to like try to like rag on them, and a lot of times I've never really heard the N-word say it when you're proud of someone or when you're saying something nice about someone. So maybe that's something that we should kind of think about.
I'm a conservative sagger. Do you mean why I sag? I thought we were going to skip this part. That's borderline. Okay. I don't think I sag personally. Low riding is what you call it. It's. I think sagging is when I think there's an excessive amount of sagging when you drop your pants to the point where you can see your full butt. I think that's extreme. But for a person like me, I don't sag, but I wear my pants to a comfortable level so there's room to move around, and you'll never see my butt. If I stand up, you may be able to see a slight color of the matching underwear. But that's it. That's not sagging.
I don't like it. Where did it come from? In what I've read and what I understand, sagging came from the prison system back in the days when prisoners, when they came in, they took their belts away from them so they couldn't, to prevent suicide attempts. You put them in a cell and they have a belt so they could use the belt to commit suicide. Also, that was a way of saying that I was available because it's an all-male prison, so you had those prisoners who wanted to provide services to other prisoners.
The whole concept of sagging has always been very interesting to me. I've heard many different stories of its origins. I've heard that once upon a time, slave owners would take away the belts from their slaves, yielding them unable to run away. I've also heard that there were different reasons in a jail or a prison system as to why the clothings were too big, probably still the same concept, yielding them unable to run away.
It's not acceptable. I don't want to see your underwear. I would prefer to see you dressed appropriately. But the society that we live in today, I feel like casual, really casual, is the norm, as opposed to when I was growing up, when our pants were up on our waist, we all wore a belt, but now the sagging is popular, and it's improved. Sagging is never great, but it's improved because it used to be baggier pants and they sag. Now it's the slimmer jeans and they pull it down. And walking down the street, you'll see young men, in an attempt to pull up their pants, they'll just tug a little bit. It doesn't move the pants, but they tug a little bit as if, oh yeah, I'm pulling the pants up. But I don't think it's appropriate. If it was left up to me, it wouldn't be acceptable on public transportation. Any public area, I would ban sagging. If you show any type of underwear, underclothing, you wouldn't be allowed in.
Now, I have a separate take on sagging when I look at my colleagues and my peers. For those that know me, know that I appreciate fashion. I understand the culture. I look at sagging as a fad. It's something that people do. I do not see sagging being the problem with our young people. I feel that it is the racial profiling that is coupled behind a person sagging, almost as if they see an African American male sagging, they automatically assume that he is up to no good or he is a criminal or a threat to mainstream society, as opposed to realize that that may just be his fashion conscious. That's how he wants to describe himself with his attire, or that's how he feel comfortable. I do not believe every male or female that sag their pants are criminal, nor do I believe that everyone wearing a suit and tie is out for their betterment of society.
Well, since I don't really know where it came from, I don't believe in it because I'm a big believer. If I don't know the source of something, I'm not going to employ it.
There are all sorts of theories about where it came from. I just tell these young men, pull your pants up, get yourself a belt, pull your pants up and respect yourself. I've watched kids on the basketball court trying to make a shot, trying to make a layup with one hand and hold the pants up with the other. I've also seen them on the basketball court right here in town going to make a layup, a two-hand layup, and the pants drop down below the knees. Disgusting. Who wants to see that? Now, whether it came from prison culture or any other culture, we're not in prison. We're out here. And we've got to lift as we climb. We've got to, the old cliches that some people may say, old, tired, and worn out. They're not old, tired, and worn out as long as they're still relevant. So we have to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. In this case, pick yourself up by your pants loops, get a good belt, and get in the classroom. There's no place or no reason to be hanging out someplace, not going to school, not accomplishing anything, and letting your pants hang down. Whether it came from prison or not, that's very disputed as to whether that's prison culture. But we're not in prison.
Sagging is a very interesting subject. I just don't get it. I don't get why you're advertising you're behind. I just don't understand it. I was always told that it came from people coming out of jail. And if that's the case, why would you come out and want to emulate an inmate? It doesn't do well with me at all.
I think that is one of the things all of us needs to put at the top of our list to get rid of. My concern in that is that I see no reason for our young black men and even those that are out of their teens to walk around showing their underwear. And those who deliberately belt the pants under their hips, that to me is just actually gross. And you think about it, there may even be some health concerns there because you've got people walking around with their underwear showing and sitting in their underwear in public places, on the bus, places that we eat. And I think I would really like to see one additional layer of protection.
I grew up in the 2000s. Well, yeah, the 2000s. So I kind of, since I grew up in the 2000s, I was around sagging all the time. Guys at my school, guys walking down the street, and it didn't seem negative. Because these were guys that I was in class with. They got straight A's on their math tests. But I do understand that it's not good. And a man is never going to walk into a job interview with sagging pants and make that job. And now seeing where it comes from, as soon as that story started to circulate in my group of friends, my age generation, more men started to pick their pants up. So I do think that it's a good story to tell and that people are understanding it.
The jailhouse culture, it came from the jailhouse, so why do we want to emulate it out here in the free world?
I think they just think it's the style and they think that it looks, ridiculous to have your pants up around your waist, but it looks very ridiculous to have your entire ass out.
Why are you walking around with your underwear showing? What is the point?
It's ridiculous.
What about having self-esteem and presenting yourself properly in public?
As far as from what I can see, I think sagging is horrible. And I just resent having to look at people walking down the streets and their whole butt is hanging out. I mean, it doesn't even look nice. Sagging, your pants are low. Okay, if it's real low, it's going to make your legs shorter. So you take a person that might be 5'10" and his pants are so sagging so low, his legs look like he's like 3'4". I mean, you know, it's not attractive. They say it's a fashion, but how can fashion do something that's not going to make you look attractive?
I just think it's gross. Like, I don't want to see your underwear. I don't want to see like your chest hair, and you have these little baby shirts on to show that your pants are sagging. I just think that men should just pull their pants up and just have a better presentation.
I remember when sagging first started, my son was playing basketball. And this was back when the basketball shorts started being large and almost looking like culottes. And my son had on those pants trying to do the same thing. My husband got up in the middle of the game and walked out. And when my son got home that night and he wanted to say, "Hey, Dad, this is what happened at the game," my husband said, "Don't even talk to me. Don't say a word. You know, because I've told you about your pants and you can't play properly having to hold your pants and pull them up." That was on the weekend. When my son came home that Monday, he said, "Dad, I traded my shorts in."